At exactly 3 a.m., the phone rang and she jolted up in fear, hitting her head against the bed frame. The pain was immediate and sharp, the kind that whites out your vision for a second, and she grabbed the phone off the nightstand with one hand and pressed the other to her forehead, and answered without looking at the screen, because her heart was already in her throat, and Seo Yun was down the hall, and something was wrong. Something had to be wrong. Nothing good called at 3 a.m. She answered. Silence. Not the silence of a dropped call or a wrong number. The silence of someone on the other end who was there, breathing, present, deliberately not speaking. She could feel the intention in it, the weight of it. Someone holding their breath on purpose, making her sit in the dark with blood beginning to track down the side of her forehead from where she hit the frame, making her wait, making her feel the waiting. 40 seconds. 50. The blood reached her jaw and she felt it drip onto the collar of her sleep shirt, and she did not move. She did not speak first. She would not give whoever this was the satisfaction of hearing her ask, "Who is there?" in a voice that shook. 58 seconds of silence. Then the voice came, cold, deliberate, vicious. Annabelle. One word, her name, said the way you say the name of something you own. She knew the voice before her brain fully processed it. The body knows first. Her stomach dropped, her grip on the phone went white-knuckled. 3 years of carefully constructed distance collapsed in under a second, and she was back in Atlanta, in the specific humiliation of the worst moment of her life, standing in a room full of people who all knew before she did. Marcus, she said. Her voice was flat, controlled. It cost her everything to make it that way. I'm in the city, he said. I just want to talk. Don't call this number again, she said. She hung up. She sat in the dark with the phone in her hand, and the blood moving slowly down her face, and the Haven Ridge night pressing against the window, and the sound of Seo Yun breathing evenly through the wall. That small, steady sound that was the most important sound in the building, and she thought about Atlanta. She thought about what she left there. She thought about how carefully she had buried it. She put the phone face down on the nightstand. She pressed her sleep shirt to the cut on her forehead. She did not sleep again. If you are new here, you need to understand something before this story goes any further. Part 1 ended with a kitchen table and a third cup, and a little girl who built a family by herself while the adults were still catching up. Part 2 is what that family costs. Subscribe right now, hit the bell, share this with someone who stayed up for Part 1, because what is coming in the next hour is going to be worse and better and more devastating than anything we did before. You are not ready. Let's go. Morning came and Annabelle performed it perfectly. That was the word, performed. She had learned performance in Atlanta the hard way, in the room full of people when Marcus ended it publicly, and she had to smile and shake hands and drive home and fall apart where nobody could see her do it. She had learned to build a face that held while the thing underneath it did not. She used that skill now. She covered the cut with her hair, angled just slightly forward. She placed the third cup on the kitchen table at 6:30 with the same care Seo Yun always used, the methodical pressing of ceramic to wood that had become the household's daily act of faith. She stood at the counter, and when Seo Yun came in trailing the bird journal and the specific gravity of someone with urgent ornithological news, Annabelle smiled with her whole face. Harold brought a friend, Seo Yun announced, climbing into her chair. Female, white marking on the left wing. I'm calling her Hyunja. It's a significant development, and I've already begun documentation. That's extremely significant, Annabelle said. I thought so, Seo Yun said, already writing. Min-jae came down at 7:23. He looked at the table. 3 cups. He sat. Seo Yun poured his coffee with both hands, and he received it with both hands, and the ritual completed itself the way it always did. Sacred and ordinary. And this morning, completely unbearable to Annabelle, because she was sitting inside it carrying a phone call that had happened 4 hours ago, and she was smiling and saying schedule, and drawing lesson at 3, and the bookshop at 10, and none of it was a lie, but all of it was incomplete. Min-jae looked at her. Not briefly. He looked at her the way he looked at everything. He was reading thoroughly, quietly, without announcing he was doing it. She felt the look land on the shadows under her eyes, on the hair positioned slightly forward over the left temple, on the specific quality of her smile that was being produced rather than felt. She held it. She gave him nothing back except the professional version. He looked at his coffee. 3 floors up in his office. Choi's report was already on the desk. Unregistered number. 3:04 a.m. 11 seconds. Estate extension her room. Min-jae did not know yet. But the report was waiting. And by 9 a.m. everything was going to change, and Annabelle had 18 hours in which to decide whether to get ahead of it or carry it alone a little longer, because she was so used to carrying things alone that, even now, even after everything they had said in the library, the instinct was still there, still pulling, still saying, handle it yourself. Don't hand your fear to anyone. You've survived everything alone before, and you can survive this. She hated that instinct. She was about to listen to it anyway. The bookshop was on the east side of Haven Ridge, tall and narrow, smelling of old paper and ambition, a children's section in the back that Seo-yeon treated as a personal acquisition project. She moved through it with the focused efficiency of a procurement specialist, pulling volumes from shelves, checking indexes, returning most with the decisive speed of someone who knew exactly what she needed and would not be distracted by what she didn't. Annabelle stood at the end of the aisle and watched the city through the front window. She had been watching since they left the estate, checking mirrors in the car, scanning doorways, reading the street the way Min-jae read rooms for threats, for anomalies, for the thing that didn't belong. She had not seen the black car, which meant either she was wrong about being watched or whoever was watching was significantly better than she was at not being seen. Neither option was comforting. This one, Seo-yeon said, appearing at her elbow with a volume on migratory birds of East Asia. And this one, a field guide, heavily illustrated. And Belle. She held up a third book, slim, dark cover, a single bird illustration, Korean title. It's about a bird that migrates between Africa and Korea. The same bird, 2 countries, 1 journey. I need it. Annabelle looked at the book. She looked at Seo-yeon's face, the earnest dark eyes holding the book up like proof of something she had been trying to articulate for a while. We're getting all 3, Annabelle said. Seo-yeon nodded and went back to the shelves. Annabelle turned back to the window. A man was standing on the opposite pavement. American, late 30s, tall. Looking at his phone with the practiced casualness of someone who had chosen their position deliberately angle and sightline calculated to appear accidental. He was not looking at the bookshop. He did not need to. He was standing close enough and still enough that he would catch her the moment she came out. Marcus Webb. In the flesh. In Haven Ridge. On the pavement outside the shop where she had just brought a 6-year-old child. Something moved through Annabelle that started as cold and converted to fury in approximately 1 second, not fear for herself. The specific white-hot fury of someone who has been threatened through what they love rather than directly, the kind of threat designed to be felt in the chest before the head can process it. She looked at Seo-yeon at the back of the shop, still selecting, still entirely safe, still completely unaware. She looked back at the window. Marcus was gone. She stood in the bookshop aisle and breathed through it. 1 breath. 2. The fury controlled, the face composed. She paid for the 3 books. She took Seo-yeon's hand, and they walked to the car. She did not look for Marcus on the street, because she would not give him the visible reaction of being searched for. In the car, Seo-yeon opened the migration book immediately. Belle, she said. It says the bird doesn't choose 1 country. It carries both. That's what migration is. You don't leave one place for another. You belong to the journey between them. Annabelle kept her eyes on the road. That's a good way to think about it, she said. Her voice was completely steady. Her hands on the wheel were not. She checked the mirror. 2 cars back, a dark vehicle had been behind them since the east side. She did not tell Seo-yeon. She did not tell Min-jae when they got home. She went to her office, and she locked the door, and she sat at her desk, and she made a list of everything she knew and everything she didn't, and she decided she would handle it herself before it touched the kitchen table morning, and that decision was already the worst thing she had done in months, and she knew it and she made it anyway because some habits are deeper than the lessons that are supposed to replace them. 3 floors up, Min-jae had just read Choi's report. The silence in his office lasted 4 seconds. Then he called Choi. "The number," he said, in the voice that meant the conversation's temperature had already been decided. "Everything. That is a woman who survived Atlanta alone, rebuilt alone, walked into the most dangerous house in Haven Ridge alone and is still choosing to carry it alone. Drop a comment right now. Is she strong or is she self-destructing? Both sides get in there. Like this video and keep watching, because this is about to break wide open." Choi delivered everything within the hour. Marcus Webb, Atlanta, the engagement, the public ending, the 4 months she spent in a city that knew the story before she left it entirely. The prepaid phone purchased 6 days ago, the Meridian Hotel on the west side, and the connection that made Min Jae's jaw go tight in the specific way that preceded his most calculated responses. A man in an Atlanta bar, 2 weeks before Marcus arrived in Haven Ridge, Korean, older, expensive suit, who had known Annabelle's name and location and history, and made sure Marcus had everything he needed to find her. Bae had not manufactured a threat. He had found an existing wound in her past, located the instrument of it, and arranged for it to arrive at precisely the moment the estate was most exposed. He had not needed to create anything. He had simply opened a door and pointed. Min Jae set the report down. He pulled up the kitchen feed on his monitor. Annabelle was at the counter with her back to the camera, both hands flat on the marble surface, completely still. She thought she was alone. She was not performing anything for the room. And the stillness of her, the specific posture of someone standing at the exact edge of what they can carry and deciding whether to keep carrying or put it down, told him more than any file. She had been awake since 3 a.m. She had placed the third cup. She had smiled at him over coffee. She had taken his daughter into the city and come back and locked her office door. And she had said nothing. He stood up. He was going to go to her. He was going to walk down and knock and say, "I know about the call. I know about Atlanta. Talk to me right now." He sat back down. He did not go. He told himself it was because she needed to come to him, that going to her with the file in hand removed her agency, said, "I know your secrets before you chose to give them." He told himself he was respecting her. He told himself he was giving her space. He was afraid. Not of her. Not of Marcus Webb. He was afraid of what was in that file, not the facts. The facts he could address. The facts had already set 3 contingency plans running in the back of his mind before Choi finished speaking. He was afraid of what the facts meant about the distance between the man she had chosen to trust and the man who had broken that trust in a room full of people 3 years ago. Both of them holding her name like something that belonged to them. Both of them believing their version of care was the right one. He read the file for 2 hours. He did not go to her. This was his worst mistake in the entire story, and he would not understand the full cost of it until Soyeon stopped writing in the Bird Journal. Mrs. Park found Annabelle in her office at 6 p.m. She knocked once. She came in with tea that was not optional. She sat across the desk, and she looked at Annabelle's face with the quiet, comprehensive attention of a woman who had watched this household for 17 years and had learned to read it the way you read weather, not from what was visible but from the particular quality of the pressure before things broke. She looked at the hair positioned forward over the left temple. She looked at the shadows under the eyes. She poured the tea without saying anything. They sat. "He knows," Mrs. Park said finally. Not a question. Annabelle went very still. "The report was on his desk at 9, Mrs. Park said. "Choi's reports are always on his desk at 9. He has known about the call for 9 hours. She paused. "He hasn't come to you." "No," Annabelle said. "And you haven't gone to him?" "No. So you are both sitting in separate rooms with the same information, carrying it separately, waiting for the other one to move first." She set her cup down. "You had a conversation in the library about exactly this. About not carrying things alone. About talking before acting." Her voice was not unkind. It was the voice of someone delivering a truth that was not going to get softer by being softened. "How long ago was that conversation?" 3 weeks, Annabelle said. 3 weeks, Mrs. Park said. "And the first real test of it, and you are both sitting alone. I was going to go to him tonight, Annabelle said. Were you? Mrs. Park said. The office was quiet. I saw Marcus today, Annabelle said. Outside the bookshop. He was on the pavement when I was inside with Seo-yeon. Mrs. Park's expression did not change, but something behind her eyes did. Did Seo-yeon see him? No. Does Min-jae know Marcus was near his daughter today? Annabelle felt the specific cold of it land, not the fact itself, but the framing of it, the way Mrs. Park had said his daughter, the correct framing, the real weight of the information. A man connected to Bay's operation standing on a pavement outside the building where a 6-year-old was inside browsing bird books. No, Annabelle said. He doesn't know. Then you need to go to him right now, Mrs. Park said. Not tonight. Right now. Because that information is not yours to carry alone and you know it. Annabelle looked at her hands. He read a file about Atlanta for 2 hours and didn't come to me, she said quietly. He knows what Marcus is. He knows what that engagement cost me. He sat with it alone for 9 hours. Yes, Mrs. Park said. He did. That was wrong. And when you go to him tonight, you can tell him that. She held Annabelle's gaze. But you are not going to wait for him to move first as a way of being right. Because while you are both being right, that man was standing on a pavement near Seo-yeon today. She paused. Seo-yeon comes first. You told him that before you said anything else. So go. Annabelle stood up. She found him in his office at 8 p.m., and she did not knock. She walked in, and he looked up, and she sat in the chair she chose when she had something to say, and she put both hands flat on the surface between them, and she said, Marcus Webb called me at 3 a.m. last night. Prepaid phone, 11 seconds. I hit my head on the bed frame picking up, which is where this cut came from. She moved her hair aside briefly. I hung up, and I didn't tell you, and I should have told you at breakfast, and I didn't, because I thought I could carry it quietly long enough to resolve it before it became something that sat in this house. She held his gaze. I was wrong. I'm telling you now, and I need you to tell me what you know, because Mrs. Park told me the report was on your desk at 9, and you've had 9 hours with it, and you haven't come to me either. Min-jae looked at her. 3 seconds. Then, Bay found him. Atlanta, 2 weeks before he arrived here. A man in a bar who knew your name and your location and your history and made sure Marcus had everything he needed to contact you. He paused. I've been reading the file since 9 a.m. What's in it? She said. Everything, he said. The engagement, the public ending, the 4 months after, what it cost you. His voice went somewhere lower and less managed. I read what he did to you, the room full of people, the timing, why he chose it that way. He stopped. And I sat here for 9 hours and I didn't come to you. Why? She said. Because I was afraid, he said. She had not expected that word. Not plain like that, placed between them like an object. Of what? She said. Of what you'd see, he said. If you looked at what I am, what I actually am, and then looked at what he did, and found the distance smaller than you thought it was, both of us holding your name like something that belonged to us. Both of us making decisions about your life without asking you first. His jaw tightened. I move people out of cities. I read files about people I care about without their knowledge. I drafted legal documents designed to control your position here without telling you first. The methods are different. The assumption underneath them that I know what's best for the people in my life without consulting them. I'm not sure it is different. It is different, she said. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to comfort you, she said. I'm saying it because it's true, and you know it's true, and the fact that you're conflating them is you punishing yourself rather than examining the difference. She looked at him. Marcus ended an engagement in a room full of people to protect himself from my reaction. Every decision you have made in this house has been to protect someone else. The methods are not the point. The direction of the care is the entire point. He looked at her for a long time. You deserve to be consulted, he said. Every time. Before I act. I know that, and I still sat here for 9 hours. And I knew you had the report and I still locked my office door. She said. We both failed today. The question is whether tonight is actually different from the library conversation 3 weeks ago. It's different, he said. How? Because then it was theoretical, he said. We agreed to communicate before the test arrived. Tonight is the test, and we both failed it, and we are sitting here acknowledging the failure instead of managing the narrative of it. He held her gaze. That is the actual thing. Not performing the communication but doing it when it costs something. Marcus was on the pavement outside the bookshop today, she said. When I was inside with Seoyeon, the temperature of the room changed. Min-jae went completely still in the specific way that was not stillness but the compression of something enormous into a very small controlled space. Near her, he said. His voice was the quiet kind, the kind Havenridge knew to be afraid of. He didn't approach. He didn't enter. He was on the pavement. She held his gaze. Bae put him there, not to threaten to be seen, to make me feel watched in a place I'd taken her. Minya stood up. I need to make a call, he said. Min-jae, she stood. Let me talk to Marcus first. Your people outside wherever you need them. But let me sit across from him and close it myself. This is mine. The Atlanta thing is mine, and I need to be the one who ends it. He looked at her. He was near my daughter, he said. I know, she said. And after I close it, he will never be near her again. But I need to do it my way. She held his gaze. Trust me. The word trust landed in the room, and both of them felt the weight of choosing it after 9 hours of carrying things alone, after all the failures of the day, both of them choosing to stand in the word and mean it. Tomorrow, he said. Controlled location. My people outside. You go in, close it, come back to me directly. Agreed, she said. He looked at her forehead. He opened his desk drawer. He took out a small first aid kit with the matter-of-fact ease of a man who had been patching things his entire professional life. He came to her and looked at the cut with the same focused, careful attention he had used on Seoyeon's cheek in the corridor, reading for damage, assessing his hands precise and gentle. It's fine, she said. I know, he said. I'm checking anyway. She felt the echo of it move through her like warmth. Seoyeon's cheek, and now her forehead, and the continuity of a man who expressed love through the physical act of checking. He pressed a clean dressing to the cut. Their faces were very close. Neither of them moved away. Don't carry things alone, he said quietly. You either, she said. He nodded once. She left. In the corridor outside his office, she stood for a moment with her back against the wall and breathed and felt the relief of a thing put down, the lightness of it, and underneath the lightness, the knowledge that tomorrow she had to sit across from Marcus Webb and close the last open wound from Atlanta. She could do it. She was not the person she was in Atlanta. We are halfway through part 2, and every single person in this house is one decision away from everything falling apart. Subscribe if you haven't. Like this video, and tell me in the comments, when Min-jae said he was afraid, did that make you trust him more, or did it worry you? Drop it below, both sides. I want the war. The meeting was the next afternoon at a cafe on the neutral west side of Havenridge. Annabelle arrived first. Corner table, back to the wall, clear sightline to the door and both windows. She ordered tea. She did not intend to drink. She sat with her hands flat on the table, and she breathed, and she thought about what she was about to do. Sit across from the person who had done the most damage to her in her adult life, and close it. Not for him. For herself. For the woman who had walked through a corridor with laundry and had a child run to her and had rebuilt something here that was real and permanent and was not going to have Atlanta attached to it anymore. Marcus came in at 2 o'clock exactly. 3 years had touched him the way consequences touch people who have been running from them, a heaviness at the edges, a gravity in the jaw that was not there before. He was still recognizably himself, and that was the thing about people who had hurt you. They stayed recognizable. The face stayed the face, and the hurt stayed attached to it. He saw her. He sat. They looked at each other across 3 years of distance and 11 seconds of phone call. You look well, he said. Say what you came to say, she said. He breathed once, deep, the breath of a man discarding his rehearsal. I came to apologize, he said. Not because it fixes anything, because I needed to say it to your face. What I did was cruel. Not the endings happen. The way I did it, the room, the timing, I chose it that way because I was a coward, and cowards use crowds to protect themselves from the reaction they deserve. I took that away from you. Your right to react on your own terms. His voice was even, but underneath it something was not even at all. I'm sorry. For Atlanta. For the job. For the 4 months. For all of it. Annabelle looked at him. She waited to feel the thing she expected, the reopening of the wound, the specific fresh pain of the original injury revisited. She waited for Atlanta to flood back in. What she felt was tired. Clean. Simple. Honest tiredness. The tiredness of someone who has been carrying a heavy thing for a long time and is about to set it down in the road and walk away from it. I accept the apology, she said. Not for you, for me. Because I am done carrying what you did as something that defines what happened next. It happened. It's done. I left, and I built something, and I am not the version of myself who stood in that room anymore. She held his gaze. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and you need to hear all of it. He waited. You were used to get here, she said. Someone in this city found you, and found our history, and arranged for you to have my contact information at a specific moment. You came here thinking it was your own decision. Marcus stared at her. What are you talking about? A man named Bae, Korean, late 60s. Before you came here, did anyone reach out to you? Someone who seemed to know about us, who pointed you in this direction. She watched it happen on his face, the sequence of recent events rearranging itself, the connections becoming visible, the specific expression of a man understanding that he has been a piece on someone else's board. There was a man, Marcus said slowly, in Atlanta, at the bar near my office, 2 weeks ago maybe. He knew your name. He said he was a business contact of yours here, and that you had mentioned wanting closure and were too proud to reach out yourself. He stopped. His jaw tightened. He gave me your number. I thought I was doing something right. He used you, she said, not cruelly, just the fact. I'm sorry, Marcus said. The raw one this time, not the rehearsed one. Leave Haven Ridge today, she said. You're not in danger, but the longer you stay, the more useful you are to the man who put you here. You came to apologize. You did. I accepted it. We're done. Go home. He looked at her for a long moment. You're different, he said. From Atlanta. Yes, she said simply. Someone in it, he said. Not a question. She looked at him with the steady, composed face that gave away nothing, except that there was everything to give away. Go home, Marcus, she said. He left. She sat alone at the corner table with the untouched tea, and the specific lightness of something finally set down on the road behind her. Atlanta, Marcus, the room full of people, the 4 months, the leaving, all of it placed down, all of it done. She sent Minjae a message. It's done. He's leaving today, coming back now. His response arrived in under 30 seconds. I'll be in the kitchen. She read it twice. She paid for the tea. She went home. Choi came to her office on the 3rd day after Marcus left. She heard the footsteps, and she knew before the knock, the precise, deliberate placement of a man who moved through the world like every step was a decision. She set down her pen. She waited. He knocked. He came in. He sat. He placed a white envelope on her desk. A settlement, he said. Generous. Enough to rebuild anywhere. A clean exit from Haven Ridge, with nothing following you. He held her gaze. Bae is not finished. There are documents Minjae drafted months ago to formalize your position, and someone in this estate has copies that are not ours. When those go public, and they will go public, the pressure on Minjae from his associates will be unlike anything since his father died. Every day you remain here is another day Bae has something to pull. He paused. I am asking you to go. Not because you don't belong here, because belonging here is exactly what makes you a weapon in the wrong hands. Annabelle looked at the envelope. She looked at Choi. Does he know you're here? She said. No. Does he know about the settlement? No. So, you came to pay me to leave, she said, her voice completely even, the same way you'd move any other piece on his board. Without asking him, without asking me. You decided. I came because I love him, Choi said, and the word arrived with a directness that surprised both of them. Not the way you do. Not the way Seo-yun does. 14 years. I have watched him build this empire, and lose a wife, and raise a daughter alone in a cold house. I watched him become unreachable. His voice was careful. And then, I watched you and that child change all of that in 38 days. I know what you are to him. I know what you are to her. Which is precisely why Bae will not stop. Annabelle looked at him. Get out of my office, Director Choi, she said. He stood. If you stay, and Bae wins. Bae doesn't win, she said. That is not how this ends. And you, of all people, should know that a man who built this city from nothing does not lose to a bitter old man with a grudge and a patience problem. She held his gaze. What I will not do is leave the people I love to protect them from something we could face together. That is not love. That is the same thing Marcus did to me in Atlanta, making a unilateral decision about what was best for me without giving me the choice. Her voice was completely steady. I am not going anywhere. And you are going to tell him what you did. Today. Not tomorrow. Today. Before the paperwork leaks, because it is going to leak. Choi went very still. How do you know about the leak? Because Bae has been 3 steps ahead of everyone in this house for weeks, she said. He has a contact inside this estate. The documents Min-jae drafted copies exist that are not ours. I don't know when it lands, but it is coming. She looked at him. Which is why you need to go to him now. Something in Choi's face shifted. Not the recalibration she had seen before, something deeper. Something that was, underneath everything, a form of respect he had been building toward since the day she stood in the garden and told him that they both wanted the same thing. He'll be furious, Choi said. Yes, she said. And then he'll call you back. Because it's 14 years, and you did it out of love. He knows the difference. She looked at him. Tell him today. Choi nodded once. He left. Annabelle picked up the white envelope. She held it for a moment, the weight of someone deciding your value and your future without your input, and put it in her desk drawer and locked it. Evidence, she thought. Not of betrayal. Of how much they were all willing to sacrifice for each other in ways that had stopped being helpful. She would give it back to Choi when this was over. The paperwork leaked that evening. Not through a journalist. Through Haven Ridge's social infrastructure. The overlapping networks of association and alliance that constituted the city's actual nervous system beneath its public face. Someone on the day staff, Bae's contact, patient and quiet and invisible for months, waiting for exactly the right moment, and photographing exactly the right document, and sending it to exactly the right person. By 9:15, 3 of Min-jae's associates had seen it. By 10, it was moving through 2 separate dinner party conversations. By 11, it had the momentum of a story that has found its audience and is feeding them what they wanted to believe. Not a love story, a question, a powerful man, a woman who was staff. Legal documents formalizing what was never supposed to be formalized. The framing was Bae's even though Bae's name was nowhere in it. Min-jae received the first call at 9:15. He was already in his office. Choi had come at 7 and said what he came to say. And Min-jae had listened to all of it. The settlement, the envelope, the intention, and the 4 seconds of silence that followed were the most expensive 4 seconds in the story so far. Get out, Min-jae said. Not the dismissal of anger. The dismissal of a man who needed the room to himself to process the fact that the person he trusted most had gone behind him out of love, and that the love and the betrayal were so tangled he could not separate them yet. Choi left. Min-jae sat alone. Then the calls started. He handled each one with the same controlled silence that said this is not available for commentary. But this was not a small digital piece. These were documents. His name, her name. The formal language of a contract that had turned private things into public record. His associates heard it differently from how he intended it. He heard it as protection. They heard it as exposure. Both of them were right, and that was the thing about Bae's operation. He didn't need to lie. He just needed to change the angle of the light. At 11:30, he went to find Annabelle. She was in the library. Of course she was in the library. He came in and she looked up, and she could read his face, the controlled fury of a man who had spent 6 hours absorbing hits, and she set her book down. "I know about the leak," she said. "I know about Choi. I told him to come to you today. I told him he had to tell you himself." Min Jae stopped. "You knew? He came to my office this afternoon with a settlement offer, and the best intentions, and absolutely no right." She held his gaze. "I sent him away, and told him to tell you. I wasn't going to carry that one for him." Something moved in Min Jae's face that was complex and warm and exhausted all at once. He sat across from her, not across the room, close. "The paperwork was supposed to protect you," he said. "From Bae. From anyone who tried to use your position against you. I drafted it months ago, and I didn't tell you because I knew you would call it control." "I would have," she said, "and I would have been partly right and partly wrong." She looked at him. "You should have told me. Not because I would have approved it without question, but because we agreed we talk first. You make a decision that involves me, you bring it to me." She paused. The paperwork was an act of love. The silence around it was a habit you haven't broken yet. "I know," he said. "Bae knew you would do it," she said. "He knew exactly what your instinct would be. Protect her. Formalize it. Use the tools you have." And he had someone waiting for it. She held his gaze. "He didn't defeat you. He used your love against you. Those are different things, but we have to stop giving him the material." "How?" he said. "By talking to each other before we act," she said. "Every time, without exception. No more files read alone for 12 hours. No more phone calls carried alone for 18. No more settlement offers drafted behind backs out of love that doesn't check whether the person wants to be saved that way." She looked at him. "We are not alone anymore. We have to stop operating like we are." "He was at the school," Min Jae said. "Bae. He stood at the gate during pickup 2 days ago. Didn't approach. Just stood there." Annabelle went absolutely still. "Tell me you're going to end this," she said. "Tonight," he said. Not reassurance. Statement of fact. 3 moves. Simultaneous. His financing, his political relationships, his standing in this city. Each one clean and legal and individually deniable. Together they remove his ability to operate here entirely. "Will it work?" "Yes," he said simply. She believed him. Not because of the certainty in his voice, but because she had watched this man for months, and she understood the precise distinction between his confidence when he was performing control and his confidence when he simply knew. This was the second one. "Seo-yeon," she said. "She stopped writing in the Bird Journal 2 days ago." Min Jae looked at her. "She what?" "Harold comes every morning and she watches him, and she doesn't write anything down," Annabelle said. "Seo-yeon stops documenting when she is trying to hold very still, when something feels too uncertain to record." She held his gaze. "She is managing us. She is 6 years old and she is managing the emotional climate of this household because she learned it from watching the people she loves carry things alone without resolution." Min Jae stood up. "I need to see her." "She's asleep," Annabelle said. "Go in the morning. Sit with her at the window. Let her show you Harold and Hyunja. Don't address the journal. Just be there. She'll open it when she feels the ground is solid again." He looked at her. "You know her differently than I do," he said. "You see things I miss." "You see things I miss too," she said. "That's the point. We're not supposed to be doing this separately." He reached across the space between them and put his hand over hers. Just that. The same gesture as before. The same language as the third cup. "I am choosing this without ceremony, simply by being present." She turned her hand over. She held his. "We close the gaps," she said. "Everyone," he said. "Every time." Bai received 3 simultaneous hits within 48 hours. His financing froze in stages that looked like coincidence. 2 political relationships withdrew with quiet apologies and no public explanation. His social standing in Haven Ridge's inner circle, the dinners, the courtesy visits, the accumulated credibility of decades, simply stopped extending invitations. He was not threatened. He was not confronted. He was made irrelevant in the specific and total way that only someone who understood the architecture of his power could achieve. He understood. receiving the third hit on Thursday morning in his Haven Ridge apartment, that he had miscalculated the degree to which Annabelle had softened Kang Min-jae. He had not softened at all. He had found something worth being hard for. Bae left the city on Thursday afternoon. Choi reported it to Min-jae at 8 a.m. Friday. Min-jae said, "Thank you." 2 words. Not forgiveness, that was a longer road, and both of them knew it. But the acknowledgement that 14 years was not a single conversation's damage, and that the muscle memory of it was still running even through the fracture, still showing up, still doing the work. Choi nodded once. He went to the door. He stopped. "For what it's worth," Choi said, and his voice had the specific texture of a man saying something he had been carrying for weeks and had decided he was done carrying alone. "I was wrong about her. From the beginning, I assessed her as a variable, a risk factor, something to be managed." He paused. "She is not a variable. She is the reason Seo-yeon laughs. She is the reason you came downstairs. She is the reason the house is a house and not a building you happen to sleep in." He paused again. "I should have said that instead of drafting a settlement." Min-jae looked at him. "Yes," he said. "You should have." "I am saying it now," Choi said. "I know," Min-jae said. The specific silence of 14 years cracking and beginning slowly, with effort. With the difficulty of 2 men who did not use this kind of language easily to find its way back toward itself. "Go back to work," Min-jae said. "Not cold, not warm. The specific temperature of something. In the process of being repaired." Choi went. Min-jae looked at the kitchen feed on his monitor. The table was empty. 3 cups already in their places. The third one, slightly to the left of center, the way Seo-yeon always placed it, precise in her own system rather than anyone else's. He looked at it for a long time. Then he went back to work. That evening, Mrs. Park found Annabelle in the garden. Not with intention. Annabelle had simply walked outside, because the house, after several weeks of pressure, felt suddenly lighter, like a room after a window is opened. And she needed to feel that lightness somewhere that was not a room with a desk and a locked drawer. She stood at the rose wall, and looked at the city beyond the estate walls, and thought about everything that had happened since a phone rang at 3 a.m. and she hit her head on a bed frame. Marcus was gone. Atlanta was set down in a cafe on the west side of Haven Ridge and left on the table next to an untouched cup of tea. Bae was out of the city. Choi had said the thing he should have said, instead of drafting a settlement. The Bird Journal was about to open again. She thought, this is what surviving looks like, not triumphant, not cinematic, just the specific, ordinary fact of still being here after the things that tried to make you not be here. Mrs. Park appeared at the garden door with tea. "You do not have to come in yet," Mrs. Park said. "I thought I would bring it out." She came to stand beside Annabelle, at the rose wall. They stood with their cups and looked at Haven Ridge glittering beyond the walls, the city enormous and complicated and belonging in ways that were still occasionally astonishing to Annabelle, to the man who had come downstairs at 7:23 this morning and sat in the third cup chair and received his coffee with both hands. "She placed the cup every morning," Mrs. Park said, "even when the journal was closed." "I know," Annabelle said. "She never doubted," Mrs. Park said. "Not once. Not even when both of you were carrying things alone and fracturing under the weight of it. She kept placing the cup because she knew the house was solid even when the people in it forgot." Annabelle looked at the city. "She is wiser than all of us," she said. "Yes," Mrs. Park said. "She has been from the beginning. She saw you in a corridor with laundry, and she ran." She paused. "Most of us spend our whole lives not running toward the right things. She did it, at 6 years old, without hesitation." Annabelle felt something move through her, that was warm and enormous and did not need to be named. "I am not going anywhere," she said. "Not to Mrs. Park. To the city. To the estate behind her and the kitchen table inside it, and the child asleep down the corridor. To herself." "I know," Mrs. Park said. They finished their tea. They went inside. That is how the most dangerous man in Haven Ridge protects the people he loves. Not with declarations, not with grand gestures, with 3 simultaneous moves and 48 hours of precision. Drop a comment, is that romantic or is that terrifying? Pick a side, I need both in there. Subscribe if you haven't, like this video, and do not go anywhere because we have the most important scene in the entire story coming right now. Saturday morning. Harold was at the window. Hyunja was there too, the white wing marking catching the early light exactly as Seo-yeon had documented it. Two other birds on the ledge that had been appearing for 3 days and had not yet been named. Seo-yeon was at the window seat. The bird journal was in her lap. The pencil was in her hand. She was not writing. Annabelle came in quietly. She sat beside her without asking anything. She looked at Harold and Hyunja on the ledge and let the silence be what it was. Not empty, not heavy, the kind of silence that exists between people who know each other well enough to let the other person arrive in their own time. After a long while, Seo-yeon said, "Is it over?" "The thing that was making the house feel uncertain," Annabelle said. "Yes, it's over." Seo-yeon looked at Harold. "You and Appa talked," she said. "For real, not the kind of talking where two people are being very careful near each other and calling it communication." "Yes," Annabelle said. "For real. And you're staying." "I'm staying." Seo-yeon was quiet for another moment. Then, "I knew you would. I knew from the beginning you were a staying kind of person. I knew it from your hands." She looked down at the journal. "I stopped writing because I needed the house to be solid before I put anything down as permanent. I didn't want to document something and then have it not be true next week." "I know," Annabelle said. "It's solid now," Seo-yeon said. "Yes," Annabelle said. "It is." Seo-yeon opened the journal. She found the last entry, 3 days old, Harold's morning count incomplete, the entry stopping mid-sentence where the pencil had simply been set down. She read it. She picked up the pencil and finished the sentence. She wrote Hyunja's wing marking. She wrote the names of the 2 unnamed birds as unknown species pending research. Then she stopped. She looked at Annabelle. "I need to ask Appa something," she said. "About my mother. The real thing. I've known for a while. I heard through the vent 3 weeks ago, and I've been waiting for the house to be solid enough to ask." Annabelle felt the full weight of it. 3 weeks. The child had been carrying the knowledge for 3 weeks, and baking on Tuesdays, and placing the 3rd cup, and watching the adults fracture and repair and fracture again, and holding all of it alone in the specific way she had learned from. Watching the people she loved. "The house is solid," Annabelle said. "And your father is going to tell you the truth. All of it, whatever you ask him. He will not protect you from it by managing it." She held Seo-yeon's gaze. "I will be there too if you want me there." "I want you there," Seo-yeon said immediately. No hesitation. "Then we go together," Annabelle said. Seo-yeon nodded. She looked back at the journal. At the bottom of the current page, below the bird counts, below the entry now completed, she wrote something she had not written before. Not a bird name, not a number. 4 words in careful, deliberate 6-year-old handwriting. "We are still here." She underlined it once. She looked at it. She looked at Annabelle. "Same as the birds," she said quietly. "They don't choose one country, they carry both. The journey is the home." Annabelle looked at this child 6 years old, who had mapped acoustic vents at 4, and designed the cup ritual at 5, and run down a corridor at 6, and chosen correctly, and then waited with extraordinary patience while the adults caught up, who had carried her mother's absence and her father's walls and the fractures of the last weeks and had gone quiet rather than let her fear infect the house, who had stopped writing until the ground was solid and was now beginning again. "Yes," Annabelle said. "Exactly that." Min-jae appeared in the doorway. So-yeon looked at him. She looked at Annabelle. She patted the window seat on her other side with the matter-of-fact authority of a child who has made a decision about the arrangement of the room. "Appa," she said. "Come sit. I have to ask you something and I need both of you here." Min-jae looked at Annabelle. She looked at him. He came in. He sat on the other side of Seo-yeon. The 3 of them at the window, Harold and Hyunja on the ledge, Haven Ridge enormous and complicated beyond the glass, the empire outside and the morning inside, and the question that had been waiting 13 months, finally arriving in a room, solid enough to hold it. "Your mother," Min-jae said, before Seo-yeon could ask. Because he had been waiting for this too. Because he had known it was coming since Annabelle told him about the journal, and he had understood what it meant when the documentation stopped. She chose to leave 13 months ago. She was not lost, and she was not hurt, and she loved you completely. She decided this life, the weight of it, the world it exists in, was not the life she could keep living. She left because she chose to. Not because of you. There is no version of that choice that was about you. Seo-yeon sat with it. The window seat was very still. Does she know I count birds? She said finally. Min-jae looked at her. No, he said. She taught me, Seo-yeon said. Every morning, she'd be at the window and she'd say, count them with me. And then she was gone, and I kept counting. She looked at Harold. I kept counting because it felt like she was still there in the counting. Like the counting was a place she left that I could still go to. Yes, Annabelle said softly. Is that strange? Seo-yeon asked. It's exactly right, Annabelle said. It's love that survived. The love doesn't leave when the person leaves. It stays in the practices they gave you. Every bird you count, that love is still working in you. She paused. She left. That was her choice, and it cost you something enormous, and you are allowed to be angry about it as long as you need to be. And the birds are still yours. Both things are true. Seo-yeon looked at Harold for a long time. Then she looked at her father. Are you angry? She asked him. Min-jae looked at his daughter with an expression that was the most unmanaged thing on his face, just a man sitting at a window with his daughter asking him the truth. Yes, he said. Sometimes. Me too, she said. I know, he said. But I have you, she said. And I have Belle, and I have Harold and Hyunja, and the unnamed ones. She picked up her pencil. She opened to a fresh page. I have a lot. She began to write. At the top of the fresh page, she wrote the date. Below it, the bird count, Harold, Hyunja, 2 unknowns pending research. Below that, she drew the 3 figures at the margin, the house behind them, the bird above, the hands connected. Then she drew something new, a second bird beside the first on the roofline. She showed it to Annabelle without comment. Annabelle looked at the drawing. She looked at Seo-yeon. Seo-yeon was already writing again. At the bottom of the page, below everything, she wrote 4 more words beneath the first 4. We are still here. We are still choosing. She underlined both lines. She looked up at Min-jae with the expression that contained the corridor, and the laundry basket, and the third cup, and every fracture, and every repair, and the full extraordinary architecture of everything this 6-year-old had built by running toward the right person at the right moment and holding on. Good morning, she said, as though they had just arrived, as though the morning was beginning right now in this window seat, the 3 of them, Harold and Hyunja on the ledge, the city outside, the house behind them, the hands connected. Good morning, Annabelle said. Min-jae looked at his daughter, at the woman beside her, at the birds on the ledge and the city beyond the glass, and the morning light on all of it. Good morning, he said. Seo-yeon went back to her documentation. The pencil moved, the journal filled, the house held. If part 2 broke you open, rebuilt you, and broke you again, that is exactly what it was designed to do. Like this video right now. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this with someone who needs to see what it looks like when a family decides to keep choosing each other after the cost of it becomes visible. And here is the comment war I want you to start right now. Choi went behind Min-jae's back and tried to pay Annabelle to leave. He did it out of 14 years of love and genuine terror about what Bae could do to the man he had given his life to protecting. Min-jae read the most painful chapter of Annabelle's life in a file and sat alone with it for 9 hours instead of walking down the corridor. Annabelle carried a 3 a.m. phone call for 18 hours before she said anything. Every single person in this house failed someone they loved by trying to protect them alone. Which failure hurt you the most and why? Drop it, pick a side, fight about it. I will be reading every single comment. Part 3 is coming. And what Seo-yeon wrote at the bottom of that fresh page, the second line, the one she underlined, is not just a journal entry. It is a question she has been holding since she was 4 years old that she has never asked out loud. Part 3 is the answer. And when you hear it, everything you think you know about why Min-jae built these walls so high is going to change completely. See you then.